Thank you for listening today on Revealing Wholeness, sponsored by Infinity Whole Health. Check out our website at infinityWholeHealth.com, where we are revealing the eternal in each individual, the infinite in the individual. The creativity is made manifest. Limitation is let go. Now, here's your host, Dr. Troy Munson.
Hello and welcome. I'm Dr. Troy Munson. I have a client who is a type A blood type, and she really does quite well with a vegetarian diet, and many A-type blood types will. She does do a little bit of protein, but not a lot. And she knows that she technically doesn't feel real well when she gets overboard on protein or on types of meat. And yet she's having some joint issues, and her and I have gone at lengths and talked about what do we need to do for you specifically. So I'm going to kind of lend some ideas to those of you out there that are maybe in that same boat. And ultimately you may ask, well, why? Why don't A's handle meat very well? And each blood type has its own crux, if you will. But vegetarians, for just some reason, they tend to be a bit more reactive. And most will already notice this. I'll have folks that will come in and I'll say, so kind of what's a typical diet for you? Well, I'm borderline vegetarian. Are you an A blood type? And oftentimes they'll be, yeah, I am. Okay, great. That makes sense. And so your body's already telling you, hey, I really don't feel comfortable with all this protein. It doesn't do quite well with me. And so my vegetarians, what we typically have to do is do a lot more truly whole grains. And if you are a type A and you do tend to do that and be a vegetarian, then you're going to want to do some research on where can I get good, whole, organic grains. And there are some great books out there. Like I love Sally Fallon's Nourishing Traditions. If you've been around the health food industry for a while, if you've consider yourself kind of a health nut and do things in a good way, you've probably heard the book. But if you haven't, my gosh, it's a gold mine. She did a fantastic job on that book. She is actually, I believe, the president and runs Weston A. Price Foundation, which is excellent. If you've never heard of that, it's another thing that you probably should go and visit their website. There's a wealth of information on Weston A. Price. She's great. She's a great researcher, Sally Fallon. I love the stuff that she produces. So, a boon for her. If she ever listens to this podcast, great. She can send me a kudo, fine. But I'm just pleased to having known about her long enough now and having a couple copies of my own of Nourishing Traditions. It's just excellent. So with whole grains is something that we would want to be doing with you if you're that vegetarian, because you do need to get a lot more nutrient value out of your food instead of just eating run-of-the-mill white bread. Please don't do that. But for joint health, it's going to be a stretch, because one of the things that a vegetarian has to have is enough protein. And the trouble is that there are 8 amino acids that we have difficulty manufacturing in our body. So they're called essential amino acids. And so if it's kind of a new chemistry lesson for you, proteins are made of a bunch of different amino acids, and the human body can make a lot of different amino acids, but there are 8 that we cannot, and 4 come from vegetable source, 4 come from animal source. So if you're okay being a vegetarian eating eggs, wonderful. You might have to do some research on these 8 amino acids and go through them and find out, is there any source that I am willing to do? And so you may find, hey, Dr. Munson said 4 come from animal, but yet there are some very small forms that do come from vegetables. I'd always love that if you throw some information my way. But that being said, we're going to make sure that we can do some things like eggs, because that's a complete protein. We may be doing some beans and rice, because we do understand that that is a complete protein. And so there are some minor places where you can find these other 4, but by and large, those 4 that are animal are really, really abundant in animals. And so, yes, you can do that, but you're going to have to be pretty careful about your diet. If there was one nutrient that is really difficult on a vegetarian, it's B12. So just for a little FYI for some of you out there that are listening to this, but when it comes to the joint, We're trying to figure out how do we get enough protein. And then, of course, most vegetarians are going to have no problem at all getting enough vitamin C or copper because they're eating lots of vegetables. They're getting a full source, full complement of the full complex of vitamin C, which copper, being the core of the vitamin C complex, is what we need to make ligamentous joint disc material in a joint. So the cartilage surface, we need that. Now, as an animal, you may opt, even as a vegetarian, to say, hey, I would like to maybe do some bone broth. That would probably be a wise thing to do for you. But you may say, nope, I'm not going to be involved in any killing of any animals. Fine, don't do bone broth. But when it comes to joint, it's hard to beat bone broth, I'm just going to tell you. So if you can even make your own, even better. And so there's some great recipes out there on bone broth. And I know there's companies out there that are making it. I've never decided to even research them because I'm really not interested in doing it other than how we typically do it ourselves. So you might go out there and do a little research. You're welcome to shoot me a quick email and say, hey, I found this company. They do bone broth and they really do a great job. They try to do it completely natural and try not to destroy the nutrient level it is. They even talk about how they use whole bone and not old bone and all that. I mean, you're welcome to do all that. Great. I'd love the research. It's always nice when I have people throw me stuff because constantly doing stuff, but obviously there's so much material out there. How can you even look at all of it? So for the vegetarian, now we're looking at those 4 components of the joints. We've talked about protein. We've talked about vitamin C or copper. Then manganese. In my area, I've talked about this in other podcasts. Manganese is in a lot of wells in a metallic form, and it tends to push out the real manganese that we need, which then creates laxity of ligaments. So if you have fallen arches or flat feet, you have probably a manganese deficiency. If you feel like your joints are really loosey-goosey, if your chiropractor has told you that you are the loosest, toughest, rubberiest person to adjust, you probably have a manganese deficiency. And so with protein and copper and manganese, and there are sources of manganese, by the way, and so anywhere that you're going to find the animal, of course, you're going to find it, but in a vegetarian type atmosphere, you're going to find that wherever you find trace minerals, you're likely going to find that. So kelp is a great source. You're going to find things like some people will do supplements of kelp and alfalfa. Great, you're going to find it there, which is awesome. Much of your green leafy vegetables, you're going to find it. You just got to have soil that's good enough for it. So continue that process of really looking and hunting for those. Some legumes may be a little bit high in manganese, but it's not necessarily something you're going to look for firsthand. And then last, so we've been through the protein, the copper, the manganese, and then last is calcium. And so calcium, a vegetarian, are you going to be okay drinking animal milk? You're not harming the animal, you're drinking the milk. And so many will even stay away from milk. But if we have an opportunity and you're willing to do that, great. Even raw cheese would be a fantastic source. So you could do some things that way. If you're willing to do cottage cheese, there's a little bit of protein and some calcium there. Orange juice, if it's raw, you'll get some. I'm not big on orange juice because there's so much sugar. So for most people, you'll find an A blood type probably handles sugar a little bit better, but you're going to want to still eat fruit in season. And so you've got a very short window of eating the lemons, the limes, the oranges, the grapefruits, things like that, because they're all coming ripe beginning of the year, some the end of the year, and that's when you're going to find most of those fruits. But vegetables, green leafy vegetables, will contain a fair amount of calcium. So you can do that since you're already doing that. If you get things like muscle cramps, tight muscles, you feel like maybe you get a Charlie horse once in a while, or your jaw gets sore chewing all the vegetables that you're eating. If your skin is dry, then I can tell you that you are lacking calcium. So the good news is, though, one of the calciums that I use is calcium lactate, and it doesn't come from milk. It actually comes from beets. And so it is a product that you as a vegetarian could do if you definitely don't want to do any kind of animal products whatsoever. So that's a possibility for you of getting calcium in. And those would all go into or lend to helping joints repair. Now, if you notice, you're probably thinking, oh, he's going to mention glucosamine. Well, I just did. But no, I really don't mind glucosamine not being present when it comes to um, joint health. I remember being about 30 years of age and that glucosamine craze coming through, and I had knee pain. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I'll start taking glucosamine. And I was taking 4 to 6 pills morning and night, and I'm taking it, and I'm taking it, and nothing's getting better. And then I do a little research that says, hey, usually a half to 1 ounce a day is really good for joint health. And so I quickly did the math on the products that I was taking, and it was like 30 was a half ounce and 60 was an ounce. So I'm like, man. So what do you think I did? If any of you know me long enough now, what do you think I did? I took 60 pills a day. And you're thinking, that's crazy. I did. I went through a bottle of pills every 2 days. But I noticed after 3 or 4 days that my knees finally started feeling better. I'm thinking there's got to be a better way than this. This is ridiculous. And then when I started researching glucosamine, I'm thinking glucose, sugar, amine, an amino acid. I mean, this should be really easy for the body. And lo and behold, the body makes glucosamine really easily. But it's all the other complications on the joint that are the problem. It's not the ability of you to make glucosamine sulfate. So as a vegetarian trying to find glucosamine sulfate, good luck, because it's going to come from animal or fish. Are you okay eating fish? Great. Go after shark cartilage then. But ultimately, to try and get glucosamine, I just don't recommend it. I find that there's so many better ways of putting your body together than doing a single thing like that. So when I do a product that is a complete joint health, I mean, they're literally taking the entire cow skeleton, discs, joints, cartilage, bone, marrow, little bits of muscle still on it. They crush it up, dry it under 70 degrees, and they put it in a pill. I mean, this is stuff that's alive that's going to help a joint heal. And I can't tell you how many hundreds of people, I'm sure it's well over 500 or 600 people I've given joint support to. And they're like, this is amazing. I tore up my knee and ruptured my cruciate, my anterior cruciate. I mean, it's ripped and I couldn't even walk. And in 3 days, I can walk on it. What in the world are you giving me? And I said, I'm giving you everything your body needs to heal that joint as fast as humanly possible. Every trace element that we don't even know about, every vitamin that we haven't discovered, every phytonutrient that we're not sure about, and of course, all the big macros like calcium, manganese, copper, selenium, all these other nutrients that we have discovered are all in it. And they're just at the beck and call of this joint to heal as fast as humanly possible. The body is amazing given the opportunity, but we seem to be so lacking in so many nutrients in this day and age that it seems like it heals really slow. And yet, I mean, check my podcast on my broken rib. When I can go from absolute intense pain and in 3.5, maximum 4 weeks, be out of pain, adjusting, normally not wrapped. At mid 50s, I can't help you if you want it faster than that. I mean, that's pretty dang fast. And so it's amazing how fast the human body will heal just given the opportunity. So I hope this kind of helps give an idea about joint health. And if you're a vegetarian, if you're willing to do some things, great. For those of you that just kind of caught this, you're not vegetarian, I hope this gives you at least comfort and maybe some ideas that maybe I could heal my joints pretty fast too. Shoot me a line, throw me a text, whatever you'd like to do, get a hold of me. I'm happy to give you some information on how do we do that quickly. And I don't like willy-nilly just giving products out because I don't know what your digestive system's like. I don't know what your ability to process this stuff is like. I don't know what your bowels are like. These are questions that every good practitioner should be asking these questions, because I don't want to do a product with you that could technically make you feel worse without understanding why you feel worse. because it's doing something and your body can't handle it. And you've got other things to fix before you ask for these things to be better. So we don't just willy-nilly give information. There is a reason why I don't just do that. And so for some of you out there that have been around and listened to a lot of my podcasts, you probably agree. How much do I talk about gut health? A lot, because I've got to get things digested in you, and I've got to get things in you that shouldn't be out of you. And so gut is always number one. It can't do much if your gut is a wreck and you can't eliminate and you can't digest. So I hope that is helpful on many, many levels. It's not done on, for flippant, but there is purpose behind everything that I do and say on each of these podcasts. So again, I hope this is helpful. Until next time, I'm Dr. Troy Munson.
Thanks for listening. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach Dr. Munson at 360-893-8586 or email him at chiroman@dr.com. That's chiroman@dr.com. Check out our current workshop schedule on Facebook at Infinity Whole Health.
The information on Dr. Troy Munson's podcast is meant to educate the listener and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent disease.